Good evening. How are you doing tonight on this Motivational Monday? You're gonna hear the heater in my background because it's a little chilly in my house, and I've even got my sweater on. And this is like a long sweater, which is nice and cozy and toasty warm. I'm embraced in wool. And so I have my water to drink. Hey baby, you might want to lay down. Make sure you've got your water. Hydration is key. And then make sure you have maybe a little kombucha tea. Down. Lay down. So tonight I have my kombucha, and this particular kombucha is a cantaloupe blend that I made up. Super yummy. It's so delish. So tonight we're gonna pull a Hookum. You need to lay down, honey. Okay, so we have a few different little goodies to share tonight. And today when I was doing my morning practice, the theme that really came through and resonated most strongly with me this morning was release to receive. And ultimately what that is when you release what is no longer serving you, you open yourself up to more to come into your life. You allow more to be received. But the bigger question is whether or not you're allowing yourself to receive, right? So I have a journal entry, and I'm kind of torn on a couple of these because these are pretty good ones. I just glanced at two of them. And so one is from the 27th of October of last year. And the title on it was How People Connect. So, are you ready? It's still a little chilly here, by the way. My feetsies. I'm even with leggings, so you know, being a Floridian, when you're wearing leggings, you know. So, here we go. We're going to begin. How people connect. Do you like me for me? Okay, so this is really a question, by the way I started this out. Do you like me for me, what I represent, or how I make you feel? In any case, there's no denying we like people for how they make us feel. Sometimes it's to feel a connection or to be validated for beliefs we may similarly hold, but sometimes it's superficial in belonging to a clique, association, group, team, political party, movement, passion, etc. But what draws us to those things, right? They're not who we are, but part of what we've accustomed to or always known or done. Sometimes something you were introduced to via family, like a sports team or a political party, or a school alma mater. It's out of routine and comfort we steer toward these arenas, literally, right? This is a major reason many of us need to peel back layers in our lives to challenge our beliefs, habits, routines, and lifestyles. Do these things truly represent who I am on the inside? Do I like the people I associate with, or do they simply provide an escapism from the life I'm living, but also find myself unhappy while still seeking something I still haven't grasped? Am I simply looking to change things up to avoid going within to confront myself and any unresolved painful memories? We're all going to have our attachment to beliefs. But the key is finding neutrality where you don't feel the need to defend your beliefs to anyone else and honor and respect another's beliefs that may differ from yours, right? Stop looking for the argument or attack of shaming another, let alone yourself, for the sole purpose of elevating your ego. Wars are based on trying to impose one set of ideals upon an opposing group. Have you seen how that plays out? Right? A clue to it is, have you seen, oh goodness, a war that was ever won? No, because it's a continuous fight for people to overpower others by imposing their beliefs upon them, to dishonor, to take power, and try to force people into taking on the same beliefs. Nobody wants this, so why do we do it? There's no such thing as a war that has been won. I've heard people mock the statement, why can't we all just get along? You know, why can't we just all get along? Haven't you heard that, right? Because the ego is strong. Rarely does a person know themselves well enough to even consider what is right for another person, but funny enough, we have all been raised in a way to take care of thy neighbor, as if we should only ever think of others, and then we project ourselves, experiences, beliefs, and ideals upon them to top it off, right? First, you must learn who you are and what drives you. Let that be your motivator, and watch how you interact with people, the clan you feel you belong to. So this is a key and a question. How do you connect to people? How do you relate to them? Is it a true connection, or is it just a superficial bond of loyalty that you have cultivated from a belief system through your conditioning and experiences in life, right? Connecting with people is powerful, and relationship is how we grow. It's how we evolve as people, individuals, and societies. You can spend years working on yourself and learning the intellectual, the intuitive nature side, but truly, how do you apply it in your relationship with others? Everything starts with self, and the most important relationship you can cultivate is going to be the one that you cultivate within, with you, your inner child, and all your hurts, pains, all your amazing life experiences. Everything you've ever been, done, seen, saw, touched, tasted, heard is a part of you. Even the stuff you are ashamed of, they're all gifts. They're all blessings. The question is whether or not you allow yourself to embrace every aspect of yourself. Because once you're able to embrace yourself as whole, with each and every little nuance and aspect you may want to shun, when you do that for yourself first, you're able to extend that to others, right? When you enter into any conversation, experience, you want to go in with open hands, right? So that you can also receive and be received. Have you ever heard the saying, go into the conversation with an open hand, not a closed fist? What do you get when you get a closed fist? Right? You're probably going to get another one. And that's the resistance. So ideally, it's about opening yourself up. And the only way you can receive is to release all of that which you've been conditioned with, and allow yourself to recreate and rewrite, hence the journal, right? Rewrite your story. If you dislike certain aspects of your life, are unhappy with where you're at, you have that moment, that opportunity, the choice to change. And the only thing that really gets us stuck is up here in the mind, because it has its beliefs that, oh, it's hard, or it's easy for you to say, right? The mind just wants to be right. The heart just wants to be happy. And since the heart wants to be happy, most times it allows the mind to override it and to enslave us into its way of trying to control things. And the mind can't control anything. It can't even truly experience anything. The mind is just the witness that thinks it has some aspect of control. When you're supposed to utilize the mind is meant to be your servant. It's supposed to serve you. And that's the whole key of meditation and mindfulness and being present in the moment. The more mindful you are, the more aware you become when things arise and you can witness and observe what is going on in your life. You can choose at those pivotal moments when you see, oh my gosh, there's that pattern. Let me respond differently. Let me try a different approach. That's going to shift everything, but it's a choice, and it's constant work. It's constant devotion, dedication to yourself, going within, embracing the power of the breath, because when you master the breath, you master your mind, you master your life, baby. Can't get any better than that, right? So that was the 27th of October of last year that I wrote that. And I had written up a blog, I'm sure, or something. And I thought that was quite appropriate, because for me, today, to also be always reminded to release, to receive. The more you can release, the more you're able to receive. And so when you're really working to get rid of the clutter, the junk, the mental anguish, even the physical pains that many of us have lived with most of our lives, the only way you can release things is when you're mindful of what you're holding on to. Correct? Love is all there is. Embrace it. Beautiful, Tevra. So true. Embracing holds merit to releasing and receiving. When you embrace all that you are, and you allow yourself to be fully whole in your beingness, being present. Cheers. That's value. So true. Oh, I love it. You're speaking my words, lady. Mwah. So, should I read another, or should I pull out the books? I have some pretty fun books to read through, too. So, trying to see. There was another one, and I'd keep my notes keep jumping around on me. Funny enough. And so I actually was noticing I had several interesting themes this particular week of last year. So I'm going to read off this particular one, which was for, let's see if I can get it. Okay. So this particular one that I'm reading now is going to be from a year ago today. And ultimately the theme was let go and relax, go with the flow of your soul. And that's been a theme for me for several years, that I allow myself to follow my soul's flow, to flow with my soul. Because in essence, we are all housed in a physical body in this human form, but it's really the soul that came here to live out a particular purpose. And often we get so caught up in the mundane of the mind, this physical stuff, this going without, we fail to go within, right? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I love your words, lady. So, sister, you are talking to me, I tell you. So, you're so sweet. You're so sweet. You go lay down. You lay down, please. I'll give you a treat afterward, I promise you. Down. Come on. Down. Sit. So we're going to speak on let go and relax. Go with the soul of your flow, the flow of your soul. Wind it down, the mind, pay it no mind. Unwind the mind. If you're meant to be somewhere, do or have something, you'll arrive to it in the perfect time. Let go and relax, go with the flow of your soul. This is very common for us to totally negate and ignore. We aren't here to live this life in the seriousness of constant struggle, pain, and suffering. We're here to live a life of joy, fun, laughter, and love. So what is it that has made it so darn complicated? Since when did the choice to be right overtake the choice to be happy, or to love one another versus competing and putting them down? The U.S. was founded upon the freedom to choose in all aspects of life, albeit there are many historical events we will never know, and some brought to our attention were not what we'd been originally told, only to learn history is altered to protect people's interests. Who can we trust? Why all the lies, the deceit, and distrust? Why do we resist what we know in the deepest parts of our beings? Let's not regret our choices by placing the focus on what we think we should do or have been conditioned to believe is the right path to follow. Those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. That was Winston Churchill, right? We want to free our ancestors from their mistakes. They were unable to change their choices and provided plenty of examples of regret and remorse for them. Let's not finish this life with regret for what we wished we had done, and just do it. Don't you want to make them proud by making a better life for yourself as they would want for you? To build a life that they had actually hoped for themselves, but lost sight of, being caught in the trap of old paradigms and ways of thinking. Wind it down, the mind, pay it no mind. Unravel and unwind the mind. If you're meant to be somewhere, do or have something, you'll arrive in perfect time. Hashtag unwind the mind. So yeah, that was last year, and I'm always kind of like, okay, it's intriguing. It's intriguing where we've been and how far we've come. And so I do enjoy going through my old journals and seeing where I've been. And I mean, last weekend, not this past we just came out of, but the previous weekend, I was in my first weekend of doing Beyond Addiction again for the second round, and I can tell you that just using the journal that I was using that particular day, in the beginning of the journal had some of my new moon intentions that I had set, and reading over those was like, wow, those are pretty cool. And the beauty is that I can honestly say that when I've set intentions through my writings, I watch my life, and when I go back through and I see them actually coming to fruition and manifesting them, it's the same with my vision boards. I don't know if anybody out there does that. If you set intentions or you create vision boards because you have certain goals you would like to achieve or experience. If any of you have done that, please let me know. I say that when we don't embrace our experience, I'm going to have to read that later because sometimes it doesn't let me read all the comments. So, thank you, Sandy. I love you. Unwind the mind. Isn't that a beautiful thing to think? You know, really? So, tonight I've pulled out the big book. This is a book that I just, I love books. I really do. And even if I don't get to read through them all the time, this is why I love doing a Hookum. And a Hookum is just a random opening up of the book and seeing what the book gives you as, it's almost like maybe it's what you need to read in that moment, right? And so we call it a Hookum in Kundalini Yoga. But it's basically, it's a random open the book. And it's beautiful because I might not get through the books, but I get the best pieces when I need them, right? So this particular book, I was living in Italy. I was in Naples, Italy, and I think I purchased this in 2006 because I just happened to be on Amazon, one of my many, oh, that looks interesting, and I wasn't even aware of Osho at the time. I just found the Book of Secrets. It's by Osho. And I can tell you right now that I'm so grateful I bought this book because it was so profound when I first started reading it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is speaking to me. This totally makes sense. And then we're in 2017, so 4 years ago, I went to India and I got to actually go to the Osho Center in Pune, India. And that was phenomenal. That was a great experience. I'm really, once again, grateful for all the places I get to go. Apparently I have some dust in the book, not even on the book. Means I had it opened up to that page at some point. So here's what I have pulled open. It's chapter 46. Yes. The Tantric Way to Freedom from Desires. I have no idea what we're about to read, but this is going to be fun because I'm here, you're here, and we all get to hear it together. I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream, but we're going to drink some booch. I love making my own booch. Ooh. It's kind of like, it's hard to describe, but it's yummy. Cantaloupe melon and vanilla. Good. And I'll tell you what, I got a lot of cantaloupes the other day from the market. So I've basically been doing a cantaloupe cleanse in the first half of the day, and then indulging in big salads. Yum. I love to eat. Ooh, mango boots, Cheryl. Yummy. I've done that with ginger too. Oh yeah, there's ginger in that too. Woo-hoo. Okay. So it starts out and it has a few questions in the very beginning of the book, and it says, is the motive towards liberation a desire or an intrinsic human thirst? Is the motive towards liberation a desire or an intrinsic human thirst? How can one be transformed by being total in actions that are of anger and violence? Think about that. That actually goes perfectly aligned with what I was just reading in my journal. Wars are never won. So how can you be transformed in actions of anger and violence? And I can actually see the pendulum can swing either way. Either way. Right? Can you tell us something about the quality of an enlightened one's sleep? So these were questions to Osho, basically. And I love that it's called the Book of Secrets because it's all sorts of really intuitive, shares. I prefer to be here. Aw, Julie, you rock. So let me see here. Let me see where we go. He's got 3 questions in here. So let's see. This would be a lot to read all of it. So I'm going to just see what we have. So the question regarding the I want to read that one. Yeah, Cheryl, this book is awesome, and every time I've ever even just what I've read from it so far, and I do this. I haven't opened it in a while, but I really do enjoy this particular book. One of my many, of course. So we're going to go with the question. Please explain how it is possible that one can be spiritually transformed by being total in actions that are of anger, hatred, and violence. And Osho responded with, yes, you can be totally transformed through anger, through hatred, through violence. And there is no other way because you exist in violence and anger, in greed and passion. From where you exist, only from there does the way start. I will not tell you to create non-greed against your greed. I will tell you to be greedy totally, but with a fully alert mind. To be violent, to be angry, but to be total, so that you suffer totally, so that you can feel the whole poison of it. Ooh. You must pass through this fire. No one else can pass for you. No proxy is possible. You will have to pass through it, and you always think that someone else will do it. Christians go on thinking that through Jesus there is salvation. It has not happened yet. The world remains the same. 2,000 years have passed since Jesus was crucified, but we go on hoping that someone else will suffer and we will reach to bliss. Ooh, that's pretty profound and powerful. No, everyone has to carry his own cross. Jesus was crucified. He reached the goal you cannot reach. You will have to pass through that crucifixion yourself. And this is the crucifixion, that anger is there, passion is there, violence is there, greed is there, jealousy is there. What are you doing with them? That's the question. The society teaches to create the antipole. Greed is there, so suppress it and create a non-greedy mind. Anger is there, so suppress it. Don't be angry. Push the energy back and smile. Stuff it down, right? What happens? Anger goes on being accumulated within, and you go on becoming more and more angry because more and more energy is accumulated within as anger, suppressed. It becomes your unconscious reservoir, and against this anger you go on smiling. That smile becomes false, because while anger is knocking within, how can you smile? You can smile, but then it will just be a false thing. So you are divided into two, a false smile and a real anger. The false smile becomes your personality, and the real anger becomes your soul. You are divided against yourself, and a constant fight will be there. And you cannot be happy with the false smile. No one else is deceived. You cannot be happy with a real anger hidden behind, always trying to come out. A false smile and a real anger. This is the situation. All that is good is false, and all that is bad is real. The real you carry within and the false you show outside, this is schizophrenic, and every man has become schizophrenic, divided. Not only divided, but constantly fighting within himself. The whole life and energy is wasted and dissipated in this fight, and the fight is stupid, but this is happening. What I am suggesting is, don't create any falsity around you. The false will never lead you to the real. The false will lead you to more that is false. Pretty profound. Don't do the false and allow the real total expression. When I say this, you may become scared because violence is there and you may want to kill someone. So do I mean to go and kill? No. Meditate on it. Close your room and allow your violence. You can express it on a pillow, on a picture, on anything. There is no need to go and kill someone because that is not going to help. That will create more problems and a chain, right? On the pillow, write the name of your enemy or your friend. And remember, we are more angry at our friends than at our enemies. Just put a picture of your wife or husband on a pillow and bring your violence out. Beat the pillow, kill the pillow, do whatsoever you feel, and don't feel you are doing a stupid thing. This is what you want to do with the real object, and that will be more stupid. Don't think that this is silly. This is how you are. You are silly, and you cannot change just by repressing it. Look at this silliness. See that this is how you are. Allow yourself full expression. Act it out, and if you can be real, you will realize for the first time what anger, what violence is hidden within you. You are a volcano, and this can erupt from you at any moment. In any situation the volcano may erupt, it is erupting every day. Someone kills someone, and just a day before, he was normal as you. No one ever suspected that he was going to be a murderer. No one suspects about you, and you have so many thoughts in your mind to murder. You have thought, you have planned it many times. The idea to murder someone else or yourself has come to you. It has happened to you if you are not absolutely idiotic. Psychologists say that an intelligent man is bound to think of suicide at least 10 times in his life. At least 10 times. And 10,000 times you think to murder someone? You never do it, that is another thing. But you can do it. The possibility is always there. Make your anger a total act in meditation, and then see what happens. You will feel it coming from your whole body. If you allow it, then every cell of your body will be in it. Every pore, every filter of your body will become violent. Your whole body will be in a mad situation. It will go mad, but allow it and don't withhold. Move with the river, and after the cyclone is over, you will feel for the first time a deep center within you. A subtle calmness will happen. When the anger has gone, there will be no repentance because you have not done it to anyone. There will be no guilt. You will be unburdened. When this anger is thrown out and silence comes, the silence is real, not forced. You can sit down like a Buddha in Padmasana in a yogic posture. You can force yourself, but the monkey within you goes on jumping. Now only the body is static. The mind is more mad than it ever was before. Whenever you sit in meditation, you feel what is happening. You are never so noisy within when you are not meditating. So why does so much noise happen whenever you meditate? Why does the mind go so vagrant? Why do you have so many thoughts coming in a cloud? It is because your body is static, and through the staticness of your body, you can feel the monkeyness of the mind more. The contrast is there. But forced silence is of no use. Either you will not succeed in it, or if you will succeed, you will move into sleep. A forced sleep, if successful, becomes sleep. It is good as far as sleep is concerned, otherwise it is useless. A real silence always happens only when some pent-up energy is released totally. The disturbance was because of that pent-up energy. The forced energy was trying to erupt. That was the problem. That was the disturbance within. When it is released, you are unburdened. Then every fiber of your being is relaxed. In that relaxedness, you can say that you're in a state of no anger. It is not against anger. It's simply absence of anger. Remember, the real is always the absence, not the opposite, not the opposite. It is always the absence, an absence of greed, an absence of sex, an absence of jealousy. But that absence in your reality flowers because the diseases have gone. Now in your inner health can flower. And once it starts flowering, you will accumulate anger. You will not accumulate anger. You accumulate anger only because you are missing yourself. Really, you are not angry at anyone else. You are angry within yourself. But you go on projecting that anger onto others. Otherwise, you will go mad. So you go on finding excuses. Really, you are angry because you are missing yourself. You are missing your destiny. That which is possible for you is not happening, and that is why you are angry. Nothing is happening to you, and time goes on flowering, goes on flowing. Death is coming nearer, and you remain as unfulfilled as ever, and there seems to be no possibility to be fulfilled. Because of this, because you are not realizing your potentialities, because you have not become that which you can become, you are angry, violent, and then you go on finding excuses. You throw your anger on this, on that. Really, it is not a question of anger, and if you make it a question of anger, your diagnosis is wrong. It is a question of self-realization. Why is one violent? Why is one destructive? Because he is angry against himself, against his very being, because he is, and then he feels to be against the whole world. A Buddha is silent, non-violent, not because he has practiced it, because now he has realized himself. Now the flower has come to its total flowering, so nothing is there to realize. He is fulfilled. Simply gratefulness to the existence remains. Now there is no complaint, nothing is wrong. When you really flower, everything is okay, all is good. Because of this, Buddha couldn't see problems, all is good. That is why Buddha is not a revolutionary. To be a revolutionary, you must be able to see misery. You must be able to feel the whole mess around, the hell. To be a revolutionary, you must have a feeling that everything is wrong. Only then you are a revolutionary. Buddha was here in this land, Mahavira was here in this land, but they were not revolutionaries. Why? This question arises. Why? When one is at ease with oneself, all is good. He cannot be destructive. He can only be creative. His revolution can only be a creative one. And you cannot see anything creative. When someone destroys something, only then does it become news. Only then can you see it. A Lenin is seen as a revolutionary, not as a Buddha. All over the world now there are revolutionaries, and they go on growing. And the reason? It is because fewer and fewer persons are realizing the potentiality. They are violent and they want to destroy. Because if there is no meaning in their lives, how can they feel that there can be meaning in others' lives? A Mahavira is even aware not to kill an insect, not even to kill a mosquito, because he has realized himself. Now he knows what is possible even for a mosquito. A mosquito is not just a mosquito. This is a possibility. An infinite possibility is there. This mosquito can become divine. He cannot destroy it. It is impossible. He can only help. He is only concerned with how to help so that the potential becomes the actual. You are just seeds. A great destiny is hidden, but nothing is being realized. The potential is wasted. The seed remains the seed. You feel anger. The modern generation is much angrier than older generations because there is more awareness of the possibility and less fulfillment. Now the new generation knows what is possible much more than the older generation. This generation is alive to the fact that much is possible. But nothing is happening and nothing is becoming actual, so there is much more frustration. If you cannot be creative, at least you can be destructive. You can feel your power in being destructive. Anger, violence are destructive forces. They are there because creativity is not there. Don't go against them. Rather, help them to be released. Don't suppress them. Allow them to evaporate from you. Then that which you think is opposite is present. When they have evaporated, you will suddenly realize that silence is there. That love is there. Compassion is there. They are not to be cultivated. They are just like a stream hidden in rocks. You remove the rocks and the stream starts flowing. The stream is not against the rocks, not the opposite of the rocks, just the absence of the rocks. And an opening happens and streams start flowing. Love is in you like a stream. Anger is in you like a rock. Remove it. But you go on forcing it inside, more inside. Then you are forcing the stream as well to go more inside. Throw this rock. There is no need to hit someone with it. You want to hit someone because you don't know how to throw it without hitting anyone. That is what I am teaching, to throw it without hitting anyone. There is no need to hit anyone, and if you can throw this rock without hitting anyone, everyone will profit out of it. You may not be throwing it in on others' heads, but it was always there and others feel it. When you are angry, howsoever, you suppress it, your anger is felt, you vibrate it. Around you, a subtle sadness happens. Everyone becomes alert that some dis-ease has entered. Everyone becomes alert to some dis-ease has entered. Everyone wants to leave you. You become repulsive. Your very attitude gives a bad odor to you. You may not be aware, but biochemists say that when someone is in love or in anger or in sex, different odors are released from the body. Actually, not metaphorically. When you are in anger, a bad odor is released from your body. When you are in love, the quality is different. In sexual passion, a different odor is released. Animals are attracted by odor because when the female is ready, a subtle odor is released from her sex glands and the male is attracted. Without that odor, the female is not ready. That is why you see dogs smelling. They can smell sex. If you are sexual, you are releasing a subtle odor. If you are angry, then too, because different chemicals are released into the bloodstream. Consciously, no one may notice, but unconsciously, everyone notices it. You are a burden. repulsive, destructive. Throw this poison out of your system. So remember this, it is good to release in the vacuum, and the sky is big enough. It will not return it back to you. It will simply absorb it, and you will be released. So do anything meditatively and totally, even anger, even violence, even sex. It is easy to conceive of how to be angry alone, but you can also create a sexual orgy alone meditatively, and you will have a different quality after that. While all alone, just close your room and move as if in the sex act. Allow your whole body to move, jump and scream, do whatsoever you feel like doing. Do it totally. Forget everything, societal inhibitions, etc. Move in the sex act alone, meditatively, but bring your total sexuality into it. With the outer, the society is always present because the other is present. And it is so difficult to be in such a deep love that you can feel as if the other is not present. Only in a very deep love and a very deep intimacy is it possible to be with your lover or beloved as if he is not or she is not. This is what intimacy means. If you are as if alone with your lover or your beloved or your spouse in the room with no fear of the other, then you can move in the sex act totally. Otherwise, the other is always in inhibiting presence. The other is looking at you. What will she think? What will he think? What are you doing? Behaving like an animal? One lady was here just a few days before. She came to complain against her husband. She said, "I cannot tolerate it. Whenever he loves me, he starts behaving like an animal." When the other is present, the other is looking at you. What are you doing? And you have been taught that there are some things which you can do and some things which you are not to do. It inhibits you. You cannot move totally. If love is really there, then you can move as if you are alone. And when two bodies become one, they have a single rhythm. Then the two-ness is lost, and the sex can be released totally. And it is not like an anger. Anger is always ugly, but sex is not always ugly. Sometimes it is the most beautiful thing possible, but only sometimes. When the meeting is perfect, when the two become one rhythm, when their breaths have become one and their prana energy flows in a circle, when the two have disappeared completely and the two bodies have become one whole, when the negative and positive, the male and female, are no more there, then sex is the most beautiful thing possible, but that is not always the case. If it is not possible, you can bring your sex acts to a climax of frenzy and madness while alone in a meditative mood. Close the room, meditate in it, and allow your body to move as if you are not controlling it. Lose all control. Spouses can be very helpful, and particularly in Tantra, your wife, your husband, or your friend can be very helpful if you are both experimenting deeply. Then allow each total uncontrol. Forget civilization as if it never existed. Move back into the Garden of Eden. Throw that apple, the fruit of the tree of knowledge. Be Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden before they were expelled. Move back. Just be like innocent animals and act out your sexuality in its totality. You will never be the same again. Two things will happen. Sexuality will disappear. Sex may remain, but sexuality will disappear completely. And when there is no sexuality, sex is divine. When the cerebral hankering is not there, when you are not thinking about it, when it has become a simple involvement, a total act, a movement of your whole body, your whole being, not only of the mind, it is divine. Sexuality will disappear first, and then sex may disappear, because once you know the deeper core of it, you can achieve that core without sex. But you have not known that deeper core, so how can you achieve it? The first glimpse comes through total sex. Once known, the path can be traveled in other ways also. Just looking at a flower, you can be in the same ecstasy in which you are when you meet with your spouse in a climax. Just watching the stars, you can move in it. Once you know the path, you know it is within you. The spouse only helps you to know it, and you help your spouse to know it. It is within you. The other was just a provocation. The other was just a challenge to help you know something which was always within you. And this is what is happening between a master and a disciple. The master can become only a challenge to you to show you that which has always been hidden in you. The master is not giving you anything. He cannot give. There is nothing to give. And all that can be given is worthless because it will only be a thing. That which cannot be given, but which can be provoked, is worthwhile, right? A master is just provoking you. He challenges you to help you to come to a point where you can realize something which is already there. Once you know it, there is no need of a master. Sex may disappear, but first sexuality disappears. The sex becomes pure, innocent act. Then sex also disappears. Then there is brahmacharya. I already get this word. Brahmacharya. Celibacy. It is not opposite to sex. It is just its absence. And remember this difference. This is not in your awareness. Old religions go on condemning anger and sex as if both are the same or as if both belong to the same category. They do not. Anger is destructive. Sex is creative. All old religions go on condemning them in a similar manner as if anger and sex, greed and sex, jealousy and sex are similar. They are not. Jealousy is destructive. Always. It is never creative. Nothing can come out of it. Anger is always destructive, but not so with sex. Sex is the source of creativity. The divine has used it for creation. Sexuality is just like jealousy, anger, and greed. It is always destructive. Sex is not. But we don't know pure sex. We only know sexuality. A person who is looking at a pornographic picture or one who is going to see a film, a movie of sexual orgies is not seeking sex. He is seeking sexuality. There are persons I know who cannot make love to their wives unless they first go through some dirty magazines or books or pictures. When they see these pictures, then they are excited. The real wife is nothing to them. A picture, a nude picture, is more exciting to them. That excitement is not in the gut. That excitement is in the mind, in the head. Sex transferred to the head is sexuality. Thinking about it is sexuality. Living it is a different thing. And if you can live it, you can go beyond it. Anything lived totally leads you beyond. So don't be afraid of anything. Live it. If you think it is destructive to others, move in it alone. Do not do it with others. If you think it is creative, then find a partner. Find a friend. Become a couple, a tantric couple, and move in it totally. If you still feel that the other's presence is inhibiting, then you can do it alone. That's a pretty profound reading. For those of you who could hold out through the end. And it definitely challenges the belief system for many, right? If you were, for those of you who actually listen to all of that, and I truly think that that is something to challenge the deepest recesses of any belief systems you may hold or have held in all of your life from your conditioning. Even for myself, reading through that. It is powerful. Because what most people don't recognize is that sex is not a physical act. It's more than that. It's more than, as he describes, sexuality. Sex is creativity. It's harnessing the Kundalini energy. It's taking that and creating and directing the energy. That orgasm is the Kundalini rising. And when it's harnessed and contained and not just spread out and let go and release the way many of us know it to, you can direct it, you can guide it in the most creative ways and manifest and change and shift your life in totality and totally experience something you cannot describe and words cannot bring any meaning to. It can only be felt and experienced, right? So I love this book, and I'm really grateful to have opened up to that. I thought that was can't make this stuff up. You know, for me, when I open up a lot of the books that I read, it almost seems the theme continues to carry. So again, I started out this morning with release to receive. And then the entry about wars are not won, basically. You have to release this desire, and even with this reading, the destructive qualities that we think are creative are really destructive. Especially when we think we need to be the vindicators or we have to be the warriors, when in reality, we just need to be. And stop putting labels on things and being attached to the dogmas and these ideologies and these perfectionisms of how this needs to look. And again, like he says, throw the rock. It doesn't need to hit anyone. Flow with your soul. Allow your soul to flow and guide you. Just like the river. Get rid of the rock. Is basically everything that you hold on to that creates the resistance of that flow in your life. And that in itself is probably the most mentally challenging thing for each and every one of us to even attain, to even to contemplate, consider, to do. Because we're like, it needs to be this way, right? We get so caught up in these belief systems and how perfectionism says it needs to be this way. Which brings out another book. And you need to hydrate even when you're thirsty, right? Or you don't have the heat. So this is another exactly. Thank you, Cheryl. Hashtag no rules, or you know what mine is? Hashtag drop the dogma. My cat ate your dogma. So, let me see about this. This is a good one. I just opened up to this page. I don't even know why maybe that's where I left off reading it. And that's possible. So, let's see. So this is a book I bought, I don't know, 2.5 years ago, something like that. Maybe 3 years ago. Too Perfect, When Being in Control Gets Out of Control. So, any of you out there, perfectionists? I'm still recovering. I'm working on it. And it's a constant work in progress. I do believe that everything in this life is a constant work in progress. You know what? It never goes away. We're always trying to improve upon the perfection that we already are in the moment. So, you are perfectly where you're at, and you're perfectly who you are in the moment. Don't try to make it worse than it is. So this title of chapter 3 is Too Perfect. Go figure. Whoever thinks a faultless piece to see, thinks what ne'er was, nor is, nor e'er shall be. Alexander Pope. an essay on criticism. Let's say that doing a good job is important to you. You try to avoid making mistakes. You pay attention to detail and strive to be thorough. You value competence, both in yourself and in others. Does this mean you're a perfectionist? Not necessarily. The attributes I just described are all aspects of a normal, healthy will to excel, a personality trait that can help one achieve personal satisfaction, material success, and a professional recognition. But in some people, that will to excel takes on an exaggerated proportion. Such people harbor the unconscious conviction that any mistake at all is completely unacceptable. I've been there, done that, not exactly helpful. They are driven to seek not just excellence, but perfection. At an unconscious level, perfectionists believe that mistake-free living is both possible and urgently necessary. The perfectionist credo says, if I always try my very best and if I'm alert and sharp enough, I can avoid error. Not only can I perform flawlessly in everything important and be the ideal person in every situation, but I can avoid everyday blunders, oversights, and poor decisions or choices. It's crucial to avoid making mistakes because they would show that I'm not as competent as I should be. By being perfect, I can ensure my own security with others. They will admire me and will have no reason to criticize or reject me. They could not prefer anyone else to me. My worth depends on how good I am, how smart I am, and how well I perform. That's the perfectionist credo. Perfection and control overlap. If you examine this credo closely, you'll see that, as with the myth of control, it is an unconscious device for quelling anxieties. It results from a child's fanciful attempt to guarantee his security among others and his sense of adequacy by excelling and generally leaving no room for criticism. The child destined to become a perfectionist views perfection as the only fail-safe way to ensure that he won't be vulnerable to such dangers as criticism, embarrassment, anger, or the withdrawal of love by his parents and others. Being perfect and leaving no room for criticism is also one of the ways in which the obsessive wields control in his relationships. And control and perfection can go hand in hand in other ways. Being morally perfect, for example, is one way to keep the cosmic scorekeepers in one's debt. Just as with the control myth, protecting and confirming the perfectionist credo is crucial to the obsessive's mental equilibrium. To the strongly perfectionistic obsessive, being wrong is not just the everyday occurrence that most of us shrug off. It's a psychic disaster. I just can't stumble. Patient after patient has told me every small failure is devastating. Has anybody else suffered from this? Am I the only one? Just saying. Failures are devastating because they jeopardize the credo and thus trigger anxiety. Also, the perfectionist comes to base a lot of his self-esteem and pride on being able to do things flawlessly, so errors make him feel stupid or inadequate. He's also likely to become quite angry with himself, proof that he believes he should have been able to avoid the error. If the error or fault is seen by another, he may feel embarrassed. Many obsessives seem to sense a constant, ever-lurking threat of embarrassment or humiliation, and they will go to the great lengths to avoid it. So here he starts to go in and talk about perfectionism versus the will to excel. It's important to distinguish between perfectionism and a healthy will to excel, which is a reasoned desire to perform competently. The latter is flexible and reasonable, while perfectionism is self-defeating, rigid, and driven. While the healthy achiever usually takes intrinsic pleasure in doing a job well, making good decisions, and having his excellence recognized, he keeps a rational perspective. He realizes that some tasks don't allow much room for error. If he happens to be a surgeon or a pilot, he takes the time to plan and prepare for his professional tasks. And then he carries them out in an exacting, thorough manner with total attention to detail. On the other hand, when he's preparing dinner for company or choosing a t-shirt, he can be far less exacting. Unlike the perfectionist, he realizes that in these matters, an error won't have major consequences, and they don't warrant a lot of energy. He usually can enjoy himself with even a less than perfect outcome. The subjective experience of achievement. Even when the perfectionist and his healthier counterpart carry out a given activity equally flawlessly, they often differ in their subjective experience of that accomplishment. A healthy will to excel tends to bring one pleasure, while perfectionism quite often is a source of pain. One patient has been playing the piano in childhood and returned to it as an adult, described how her own perfectionistic expectations were taking the pleasure out of her studies. I find myself feeling tense even when I'm alone practicing. I worry that I'm not making progress fast enough. I know that I have an aptitude for music, and other people would say I play well, but I never feel that I've mastered anything. Even when I really know a piece, hitting a few wrong notes tends to ruin it for me. The non-perfectionist doesn't need to be right all the time. His security doesn't depend upon having a spotless record or being viewed as the ideal person. But when he does achieve a goal or overcome an obstacle, he feels gratification, fulfillment, and even joy. The perfectionist, on the other hand, is apt to experience any given task or interaction as a test that will reflect his adequacy. So it's always important for him to do things correctly, know the answers, make the right decision. His goals and motives in any endeavor are so complicated that he can hardly avoid being preoccupied and tense. When he does achieve excellence, he can rarely enjoy it. Every day I see the cost exacted by this illusory ideal of perfection. If you have to be flawlessly competent at practically everything, even the least significant of life's tasks can be transformed into a nightmare. One patient in her 30s described for me the stresses involved in planning her 9-year-old daughter's birthday party. I feel I have to do such a good job of everything, it's very hard for me to stop trying to improve various details. Last night, for instance, I thought up a new idea for party favors that would fit in beautifully with the party, the theme. It'll be quite a bit of work, but I just can't seem to draw the line. I just keep feeling that if every aspect of the party doesn't turn out perfectly, the whole party will be a flop, as crazy as that sounds. I have the sense that people will think less of me. It takes the fun out of everything. I can't enjoy anything because I'm too worried about making sure it's just right. Anybody else out there experience that? Even still to this day, I have moments myself, so I get it. And yes, this is totally appropriate for what I've experienced most of my life. Performance pitfalls. Besides putting many obsessives under enormous pressure, the perfectionist credo can cause other insidious damage. It often propels obsessives into self-defeating behaviors that far outweigh the rewards of avoiding errors. Deadly deadlines, for example. Many perfectionists chronically have trouble getting their work done or even started. They tend to procrastinate because all tasks loom large when they have to be done flawlessly. I have to force myself to do anything, a city planner named Stephen told me. For example, in writing reports, I can make a quick decision as to what recommendation is appropriate, and I usually know it would hold up in the long run. My judgment is good, but when it comes down to actually making the recommendations, I'll put it off. I'm afraid I'll be judged for what I'm recommending. Once a task is undertaken, the perfectionist always finds room for improvement. No matter how much time he spends on a project, there's always the chance someone will catch an incomplete or erroneous detail. So he holds on to it, spending far more time than necessary. In his mind, the danger is in letting go of something before it is truly perfect. Under this pressure, some perfectionists actually miss their deadlines, while others meet them but pay a terrible personal cost. I've seen some remarkable examples of just how long people will cling to almost finished tasks rather than letting go. I remember an economist who became mired in perfectionist behavior each time he wrote a paper for a scientific conference. To cover himself, he would polish and revise his writing until it was too late to take the chance of mailing the document. Then he would actually fly to the city of the conference to hand deliver his submission on the day of the deadline, still furiously revising it on the plane. It was even more struck by the case of the 140-year-old graduate student who had been working for several years on just the introduction to her dissertation. Leona had already been turned down for one job at a first-rate university because she had made so little progress in her writing. I keep taking more notes, making more outlines, she told me, but I don't actually write. When I come up with an idea, rather than just write it out, I'll look for more material to make the idea more profound. Yet I realize that my best ideas come from writing rather than from outlining and taking notes. Then why aren't you doing that? He asked. After a long pause, she replies, I'm not sure. I feel paralyzed by the pressure to produce something better on this topic than anything that has ever been already written. Why does it have to be better? I think about the reactions of those who will review my work. I'm especially worried about one professor who has been a big supporter of mine. I imagine his reading it and realizing that I'm not as talented as he thought. This patient wanted every sentence to be profound, and she couldn't write down a single word until she was absolutely certain it was the right word. Ironically, the longer the writing took, the higher she felt others' expectations would be, so the self-imposed pressure mounted with each passing month. Over and over, I've heard patients describe being frozen into inaction by the awesome imperative to do a task, not just perfectly, but in a way that it truly impresses or astounds. In other words, to be great. I have to stress that most of the time the obsessive doesn't walk around consciously thinking that he or she must tower over other people. Acknowledged consciously, it sounds pretentious. But whenever I question point by point why can't she afford an oversight in her presentation, or why he can't stand to be seen as an average attorney, or designer, or chef, or teacher, a submerged desire to astound people with his or her knowledge or ability emerges. Not only can the imperative to be great inhibit one's day-to-day functioning, but it can also paradoxically discourage one from developing one's talent, sometimes at a tragically early age. I think of Janine, a gifted 27-year-old architect who consistently had trouble undertaking important projects because she was convinced she had to produce a design so innovative that it stands everyone on their ears. Even sadder was Janine's outlook for her future. I had so many plans, so many fantasies, she told me, but because my work has to be so incredibly good, it takes infinitely longer to execute something than to simply think of doing it. I feel like I've wasted the last 2 years. Anything I do now will be less than what I fantasized I would do. So now it feels like there's no use. Does anybody out there struggle with anything like this? Are you a perfectionist? Whew. Powerful readings tonight. I hope you're enjoying them. Hydrate. Thirst. Continuing on, the completion complex. A trait related to the need to be flawless is the need to be thorough. Bowing to this pressure when preparing a presentation or written report The perfectionist will include far more information than necessary. He can't draw the line between what is and isn't important. And he can't risk leaving anything out for fear someone will think he wasn't fully informed. What if he loses the sale or in the case or the grant because of one small omission? Or what if this leads to his doing increasingly sloppy work and he winds up being just average? Among countless examples of this behavior, one is provided by the teacher who feels driven to give the perfect lecture. She fastidiously presents reams of background information, but then finds herself having to rush through the very issues to which she was building. In fact, her students often can't follow her increasingly frantic lectures and walk out without having absorbed the main point. Another example is that of the doctor who takes an unnecessary, exhaustive medical history from his new patient, then gives a very thorough physical exam, only to find himself behind schedule. With more and more patients waiting, he writes out a hasty prescription and gives the patient only the briefest instructions for taking the medicine. The patient walks out feeling badly handled. Sometimes when I ask an obsessive patient about one specific point, such as, "Have you been sleeping well lately?" he'll bombard me with much more detail than I need. Experience has taught me that if I try to short-circuit the response to get information I want, he's apt to get annoyed with me for crowding or rushing him. So his answer monopolizes our conversation, and we wind up having to cram our discussion of the more important issues into the final minutes of our session. Bear in mind that several unconscious motives may shape a person's behavior in this type of situation. Filling the room with details and lengthy explanations also enables a therapy patient to avoid confronting his feelings. Yet another covert motive may be to keep me in a listening rather than a pressing, intruding mode. If he's leading the discussion, he's wielding the reins, not I. However, the obsessive's chief motive for covering topics in such fine detail is usually his exaggerated fear of omitting something that will turn out to be important. This fear blinds the person to the fact that too much detail can dull the impact of his main points, boring and confusing listeners rather than clarifying. If every base has to be touched and all pros, cons, and caveats acknowledged, communication is sterile. It lacks color, force, and focus. Perfectionism, once again, winds up detracting from overall performance rather than enhancing it. Physical clutter. Here we go. Now this one speaks to me. You know, it really boils down to perfectionism is about control. And feeling like, again, it goes back to the mind. And it really is like that, you know, the monkey chasing its own tail. And we create our own passions and drives and suffering and the attachments to belief that it has to be perfect and in a certain way. So let's go on to the physical clutter, because this one is probably my big one right now that I'm dealing with, right? Just as some perfectionist speech is cluttered with too much detail, others have trouble discarding things in their lives. They are crippled by the fear that they may make an irreversible error in throwing something away and by their inability to prioritize. One of the most extreme examples I've ever seen is of this involved 50-year-old hospital administrator named Carl. When I met him, Carl had been living in his apartment for almost 2 years, yet boxes and packing crates were piled 4 to 6 feet high, filling most of the living space. Though Carl had arranged a neat path between them to connect the various rooms, so little space was left that he had almost no furniture. He even slept on the floor. Okay, I'm not that bad. He told me that the boxes contained newspapers, magazines, and books he planned to read as soon as I get time. Any of you out there, I'll read them when I get time. Nor could he discard old letters, broken tools, or empty containers, because you never know when something will come in handy. I've been there. Of course, Carl couldn't invite people to his apartment,
where they would see the appalling clutter. So his social life floundered. Yet each time he decided that he had to discard something, he was overwhelmed by the pressure of prioritizing. Somehow, everything seemed equally important. His abhorrence of errors was also choking off his productivity at work and even affected his style of speech. For fear of leaving out any detail that might prove important, Carl got bogged down on rambling over inclusive monologues that even he could see were off-putting. When I asked why he couldn't at least put the boxes in storage, he offered one feeble rationalization after another. He said he might need something from one of the boxes, and it would be inconvenient to retrieve it if they were in storage. He was also unsure which was the best storage facility and needed more information before making up his mind. The more I pressed him, however, the more Carl was willing to face the implications of his rationalizations. One day he admitted that instead of holding on to his piles of magazines, he could go to the library to look up magazine references. On another occasion, he suddenly remembered an old television program featuring the milquetoast high school teacher named Mr. Peepers. In this particular episode, Mr. Peepers was trying to persuade his students to memorize the formula for sulfuric acid by warning them that the President of the United States might someday pop in on them. How would they feel if the President asked them for the formula and they didn't know it? Carl smiled ruefully when he recounted his memory of the show, but he was also admitting to similarly twisted logic that was still influencing, indeed paralyzing his own life. Fortunately, Carl had reached that point where his stagnation had become so unbearable that he was willing to risk making some changes. He learned to remind himself of the costs of his perfectionism. Little by little, he began approving work charts even when they lacked some tiny, non-essential bit of information. This cut down the backlog in which he was drowning, and he finally plunged in and began to weed through some of the junk that filled his apartment. Almost immediately, he began to feel relief, seeing clearly how his self-protective perfectionism had been undermining him, helped him resist and overcome it. And so some obsessives go to the opposite extreme. They're too orderly. But milder variations of Carl's disorderliness are common in obsessives. They might generally be sloppy, or the disorder may be confined to one area of their lives. To their car, say, or to a particular closet. In many cases, the ironic underlying cause of the mess is perfectionism. Cleaning up would require scrubbing every surface, removing every molecule of dust, finding a place to store every possession, a task so Herculean that it would daunt anyone. This is, so I don't know if anybody else out there deals with perfectionism, deals with the fact that, perfectionism is it really all starts in the mind. And it's a control issue, right? So I'm going to stop there. And it's pretty powerful when you start to look at your life and you reflect upon, what am I holding on to? What can I release so that I can receive? So hashtag release to receive, because this is the message, this is the theme. And everything that I'm pretty much covering that has pulled up in my journal was my theme in my morning meditation, even in the books. We hold on to things that prevent us from receiving that which we want to experience, that which we came into this life to achieve and to have and to be a part of and to give so that we may receive. We have to release whatever it is. Consciously, unconsciously, it's all an awareness. It's all being mindful and being present in the moment. And so that's the question for everyone tonight. Are you aware of whatever it is, and what is it that you may be able to release so you may be able to receive? Thank you, Diana. I hope you're all having an amazing Motivational Monday. Oh, so yummy. It's a leggings kind of night and a long sweater dress type night. So, any questions? Do you have any questions about what I've written tonight? What I've read over? Because one was a journal entry, or two, I went through 2 journal entries. And I love when I reflect, because for me, last year, I was a totally different person. I was in a totally different space, but yet the messages always carry through, and how far have I come and how far have I grown and evolved. And this is why I love journaling, because I tend to find I'm able to see where I've been and how far I've come, and even still the wisdom at the time that's still applicable to the moment, right? Tavra, thank you so much for your beautiful words. I truly appreciate you, and you have some beautiful, beautiful, yes. Isn't that the truth, Diana? We're all dealing with some form of perfectionism and the need to just rewrite our stories by releasing what we've been holding on to for so long, right? And so that's why journaling is such a beautiful tool, and we can all utilize it. The question is if you are, I mean, maybe it doesn't speak to you to journal. Maybe you need to do voice memoing. Maybe you like pictures. Maybe you draw. Maybe you paint. Mandalas. Whatever it is, it has to be your creative expression. Whatever speaks to you, speaks through you, comes from your heart and soul. It could be food too, because you know I'm a foodie. And I could be in the kitchen easily enough, and to me, it's like, oh, I have all these ideas and all these exciting recipes I want to create, right? So of course, you know, I baked up a calabaza squash that I'm dying to create a few different recipes out. Cleared out. Oh, yes, it's all about purpose. We're all on purpose, even if we don't think we are. Cleared a lot emotionally, still hold it. Yes. You know, I like what Marianne Williamson says. It's not over till the happy part. And I kind of see that as going, well, it's all happy. It's just that it keeps getting better. So the more we work through, the more joy, the more bliss, the more it's all inclusive, right? And it's all about embracing all that is. And not seeing, oh, this is good or that's bad. Just seeing that beauty, that even in the moments when you're like, ah! I don't know if anybody else goes through this, right? When I have time, oh my gosh, I love that one, right? That, okay, I didn't get to this today. That when I do get to it, it's going to be fine. And when you release the attachment and you release that perfectionist within that says, but I had this list and I missed a couple items on it. Instead of holding on to what you didn't get done, embrace and celebrate what you did get done. Because where attention goes, energy flows. And when you focus on what is really truly working, the stuff that really isn't working will work out. When you think you're at your last strand, string, rope, right, and you're ready to fall off, just be grateful that you're able to hold on to what you have. Because the moment you really focus on, oh my God, I'm about to fall, I'm just at that last thread, that's when you're going to fall. But when you go, wow, you know, isn't that awesome? I still have a hold of this. You don't know. Maybe you're going to be able to find that you're able to ascend higher than if you were to focus on what's going to drop you lower. So, I want to say adieu
Buonasera. Buonanotte. I love you all. I hope you've enjoyed this evening's journal, random journal hookum, Motivational Monday. Keep it raw, stay rad. Mwah. Be well.